Alex.
Hello.
Alex, here's tell folks a little bit about you, and then I have a hypothetical question.
Okay. My name is Alex Hultgren. I'm a fractional CMO. I'm currently based in Phoenix, Arizona, and I've been doing this for 6 years.
So, okay, thank you. Here's my hypothetical. Okay. The selling process is over, the schmoozing, the contracts are done, the ink is dry. You've signed on for a 1-year fractional CMO engagement. Today's day one. At a high level, can you talk about the maybe the one or two or three things you're going to try to achieve in the first few months?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, Dean, thanks for having us today. I really appreciate this opportunity.
Sure.
In the beginning of an engagement, whether it's 3 months, whether it's a year, I'm going to do a quick assessment of the lay of the land. I'm going to try to understand how marketing is functioning. It really comes down to 3 areas I look at. One is the overall marketing strategy and how well does that support the business strategy. The second area is if there's any existing marketing team, I want to get a feel for how they're organized and where the relative strengths of the individuals are. And then the third thing is looking at the actual tactical execution, however they're going to market currently. What are they doing, if in any way they're doing any marketing? Because sometimes you walk into a situation where they don't even have the function existing yet, but really understanding what the current lay of the land is. Then I always try to look for a quick win because oftentimes, if you're just there in the first 60 days and they don't see anything happening other than you just attending meetings, it's going to be very hard to explain your value. So that's what I try to do in the first, call it 60 to 90 days. Because oftentimes, too, you're asked to both build the plane while you're flying it, right? So you got to jump in, hit the ground running, but you need to find a quick win or two. And there's almost always an opportunity somewhere. You just got to uncover it quickly.
All right. Excellent. Mark, hey.
How are you, Dean?
So, Mark, I'm good, thank you. Mark, tell folks a little bit about you, and then I have a variation of that hypothetical that I want to throw at you.
Excellent. Mark Goloboy, I manage market growth consulting. We have 3 pillars to our work. We do fractional CMO, where we will be either the leader or the outsourced marketing department for smaller clients. We do consulting projects with everything from go-to-market strategy through implementing marketing technology or websites. And we do some staffing for executives. So we will help teams build their organization and send them on their way.
All right, here's my take on the hypothetical. This is episode 136. I've never asked a fractional CMO this question. But same setup, selling process is done, ink is dry. It's going to be a 1-year engagement. Today's day one. What are the sort of indicators? Alex just talked about sort of the ideal way to start, right, and take off in the first 90 days. What are some of the indicators of a terrible way to start in the first 90 days?
I have clients who like to tell me that they're great at marketing, and I always know that they're going to be a bad client when they think they're great at marketing.
Yeah.
Marketing takes humility, and it takes understanding that we're never great at marketing. We need to test and learn and innovate to get better every day. And the technology is changing, and the tools are changing, and the market is changing. And if you think you're great at marketing, you're probably never going to be great at marketing.
All right, that's a good answer. All right, so then let's continue that hypothetical a tiny little bit. I'm the CEO of the client that we've just hired you, okay? And it's our meeting on day one, and we've talked before, but today's like official. And I say, hey, so you've worked with way more CEOs than I've worked with CMOs. So what should I stop doing starting today so that the company gets like absolute maximum benefit out of having you here?
Yeah, I think a lot of it the CEO already knows. The CEO has sat in the meetings with product and marketing and sales and heard what's broken. And some of that he discards as chaff. And some of it he hears and he says, if I fix that, my company will do better. But the CEO probably already knows where to invest. And it's just a matter of getting that person to be honest and say, if these 2 things happened, we'd grow more. If this person was replaced with someone who was better at their job, we'd grow more. And if marketing did these things coordinated with sales and product, we'd be better. And getting asking enough questions to get the CEO talking and tell you what's broken and tell you what needs to be fixed is the real challenge.
All right, that's good. And Alex, so sort of the inverse of that question. I'm the CEO, and I look at you and I say, "Hey, so as CEO, what should I stop doing
I,
so that we get maximum benefit out of you?"
yeah, the first thing I'm going to do is do an assessment again of where things really stand, because it's without that insight, it's tough to advise what they should stop doing specifically. Consultants always come in, and even though we're fractional CMOs, a lot of times we're viewed by a CEO as a consultant. And consultants are really good at identifying a problem and then repeating it back to the CEO so it's their idea. So that's just the nature of the business to some extent. So finding out what exactly that CEO is looking for and then finding a quick solution for it. In terms of marketing specifically too, and I don't know if it's so much an action of the CEO as it is just the marketing department, there's probably always an efficiency somewhere. They're spending too much money on a tactic that worked 5 years ago and they've never stopped doing it. But the reality is it's just not getting a return anymore. And being able to identify something like that quickly will help the CEO immediately.
So, the next three questions I have for you guys are my favorite questions because they require almost no work on my part and quite a lot on yours. And so I think that's equitable. And so, Alex, I'm going to start with you. The first of these questions is just fill in the blank. Many clients just don't understand.
That marketing is an art and a science.
Mm.
The reason I say that is a lot of times, particularly now with all the advancements in digital marketing, people are looking for a guaranteed ROI and they're looking for efficiency and they're looking for a lot of things that they can track easily, which is usually bottom of the funnel stuff. And I remember getting in kind of a heated debate with the CEO of a company I was talking to. And the CEO was an engineer and he wanted everything to be guaranteed. He wanted to see financial modeling for everything I was going to put together. And I said, look, here's the reality of this. We can get an ad in front of the right person on the right website at the right time based on what we know about their decision-making process. Right. But if the message doesn't resonate, it's not going to make any difference. It's one of 2,000 other brand mentions they're going to see that day, they're going to ignore. So in spite of all the technology and everything we can do from a targeting standpoint, you've got to focus on your value proposition. You've got to really understand how you can uniquely solve that customer's problem and make that come forward in every touch point you have with the customer. So the science is great and we can use the science like we've never been able to in the past. But honestly, if you don't get the art right, if you don't get the messaging right, the brand feel, the voice, you've got to get that right if you're going to resonate with the customer wherever they are.
And Mark, many customers just don't understand what?
Measurement. So I think that a lot of people think this program is working and this program isn't. And when you drill into the details of that, clients haven't gone through the hard work to measure those programs in terms of their business. So whether that's revenue or pipeline or awareness, most clients would say, this is working and this isn't working. And when you ask them deeper questions, they're not measuring it in the right ways that they can really learn how to do better with the next dollar spent.
On my website, there's a free book that I wrote earlier this year with 17 CMOs called What Your CMO is Trying to Do. And I asked, there were like various topics of types of marketing, direct response, event marketing, whatever, right? And when we got to KPIs and metrics, sort of what came out of the conversation, a lot of times what comes out of a conversation or an interview is the real good stuff comes after the mic's turned off, right? And I asked the guy, hey, what's something about like KPIs or metrics when it comes to marketing that like pretty much no one ever like asks or talks about? And he says, the main lesson to take away is that metrics, when you start to decide like what's going to be measured and how, it is surprisingly political inside an organization, right? Because it's literally the definition of success. And no one in any other part of the company or in marketing wants to be held to a standard that they think is unfair or can't be met. He said it is surprisingly political how much negotiation can come in to decide on what to measure. And I don't think I'll ever forget. Okay. So Mark, next fill in the blank question. Okay. A fractional CMO starting their business today is going to be surprised by what?
How hard it is to do business development. So I think
Yeah.
the biggest shock for me was I thought I talked to people, they hired me, and I did the work.
Hmm.
And what it turns out that I need to do every day is have sales discipline. And I've never been a bag carrying rep before, but I need to have sales discipline and every day follow up on my opportunities, start new conversations, find the client, find the prospects that'll be my clients 3 to 6 months out. And as soon as I don't do that, I have a dry month. And I didn't know that going in. And I spend probably 40 or 50% of my time on a
Hmm.
combination of business development and getting projects assembled for proposals, which is also business development, of course. And I didn't expect to be spending that much time doing that.
Um, a little hint for you: you might want to consider starting a podcast. My revenue doubled in the year since I started recording these episodes. Just gonna say. On the other hand, if you're a chef watching this, just because you're a chef doesn't mean you know how to start and run a restaurant. It's a very different skill. And Alex, how about you? Right, a fractional CMO starting their business today is going to be surprised or shocked by what?
That they're going to need and this is an antiquated term, but a Rolodex of
Yeah.
freelancers, a network of people that they can rely on to do some of the actual hands-on keyboard work. Generally, when you got to the point where you are the strategic marketing leader in a company, you're probably not playing around in Google Ads anymore. You're not fooling around in Facebook. Not that you can't do those things, but you're probably not the most efficient way to do that. So whether it's a creative director or a copywriter or someone that's really, really good at understanding the PMAX stuff in Google, whatever it may
Mhm.
be, having that kind of network of people to rely on is really invaluable once you get going.
That's a good answer. Obviously, I think it's a good answer. I'm one of those people. My whole business model is to be in that Rolodex for a lot of fractional CMOs. So I think that's an outstanding answer. Okay. So, Alex, next question. Uh, something that a lot of clients like that you think is underrated, or I'm sorry, stuff that a lot of clients like that you think is overrated.
Getting back to the question of, or the idea of metrics, I think one of the
Hmm.
challenges is there are so many digital metrics now and so many things you can keep track of, but it's easy to look at a beautiful dashboard that's got this and that, and you're looking at what's going up and down. But what are the metrics that are really, really driving the business? I think we focus sometimes too much on just the data puke, right? As Avinash will call it, a
Hmm.
guru in data. Used to work for Google, but he talks about just the overwhelming the executives with data, as opposed to, you know what, there's probably really only 5 or 7 metrics that are truly driving the business, and that's what we should be honing in on. So I think it's easy to get overwhelmed and just, kind of these grandiose spreadsheets with lots of circles and footballs and all these kinds of data. But honestly, what's really driving the business, and how do you use that data to make a better decision next time in terms of what's going to move the business forward?
Mark, what do you think? Is there something in marketing that you think is underrated right now? Yeah.
I think demand generation is underrated. So I think there's a lot of theory out there that whether it's inbound marketing or product-led growth or account-based marketing, that you just do that and it works. And it turns out that there is a lot of hard work that goes on behind the scenes to develop the systems and measurement and execute the programs that take those moments of interest that you've created and turn them into clients months later. And a lot of people say, we do ABM, we don't need to do email marketing. Email marketing
Hmm.
is dead. We don't need to measure because people will come to us when they're ready to buy. And I think that that is overlooking the hard work of demand generation that causes companies to be successful.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Okay, so last question before we wind down, and it's we have this question now. This is season 6. We have this question in season 6 because it's sort of an unusual setup. Every guest on the podcast picked their own day and time slot. There's like a set number of time slots for Thursdays, right? Which means that who ends up in a podcast episode completely random. I have no control over it. I don't pick people and put them together, that kind of stuff. Right? And so what you end up with is you're in a discussion with someone who does the same kind of work generally, but who you've likely never met and don't overlap much in any way, client wise or whatever. So what I let people do is Alex and then Mark. You can ask the other guest or me, but no one's ever asked me a question. I don't normally offer it, but you can ask the other guest anything you want, like how do they find clients? Like what does this normally cost? Like what do you hate most about it? Whatever you want, right? So, Alex, what would you ask Mark? Any question? You've suddenly been thrust into a conversation with another fractional CMO.
Absolutely. So, Mark, are you ever tempted to go back to a W-2 job?
No. So
That's
I have, that is a really good question. So I committed myself and had the conversation with my family. This is what I'm going to do from now on. And that was 2 years ago, a little more than 2 years ago. And I had to tell myself that until I believed it and it became a reality. And there was a lot of hard work behind the scenes, a lot of moments that I was like, this isn't working as well as I thought it was going to, that I had to power through. And at 2 years in, it's feeling really sustainable. But no, I never want to work for anyone again.
And Mark, how about you? What's your question?
You mentioned working at Google. What did you learn at Google that you now apply to clients?
Oh, sorry. So clarification there. Avinash, the guy who is the
Avinash Kaushik. I
yeah.
misunderstood. So how do you, I'll change my question. How do you find your next client?
Through networking, quite honestly. I try both more active networking as well as more passive networking. So the active stuff I do is going to coffee meetings and going to happy hours and going to different events. I just moved from the Twin Cities to Phoenix. So I had a great network in the Twin Cities, and now I'm trying to rebuild that in Phoenix. So there's still the physical getting out there and shaking hands and meeting the people. From a passive standpoint, I try to produce more content that shows up on LinkedIn. I don't have a newsletter set up, but I'm moving in that direction with some video content so that I'll just be top of people's mind because you're in their inbox every 2 to 3 weeks, so that when I don't think any one piece of content is going to generate a new client, but if someone says, oh, I have a marketing problem, that person's more likely to say, oh, you know what? I know a guy because I'm in their inbox more frequently.
All right. Okay. So, Alex, as we wind down, who should be contacting you these days and how should they get to you?
I really love talking to CEOs of companies that are between 5 and 50 million in revenue.
Okay.
I think that's kind of the sweet spot where I can have the most impact. I used to work at Ford and I worked with Walmart from an agency standpoint. So I've got big enterprise experience, but what I really love is kind of that small to mid-sized business where we can really help them get some strategies to grow. So that's my ideal kind of client. And what I look for is a CEO that's saying either, look, our marketing isn't working. We don't really understand why. Our sales have plateaued. We're not really sure why, or we need to launch something new and we don't really even know where to start. Those are three scenarios where I can immediately start having a conversation that can hopefully add value to what they're trying to do and hopefully turn into something longer term. So that's the key. You can reach me really at alex.hultgren@chameleon.co. I'm part of an organization called Chameleon Collective, and it's a federation of about 50 or 60 of us that are fractional or interim CMOs, CROs, and CTOs. And then we've got another 70 or 80 subject matter experts in areas of marketing. So it allows me as a fractional kind of, if you think about that Rolodex of freelancers you want to always have on staff or always have kind of at hand, I can put together a team that's got a creative director or a copywriter or a digital media expert or a social media expert or a web developer. Whatever the client needs are, we can put together a team specifically to solve their problems. So I can serve as kind of the interim leadership in terms of marketing, but then also wherever there may be gaps in the existing marketing team, we can fill in those as well to make sure we're getting everything done to move the business forward.
So leadership and or staffing.
Correct.
In a way. All right. And Mark, how about you? Who should reach out to you these days and how should they get in touch with you?
Clients who are going through times of change. So I think the most interesting place to start is when either a company has moved on from their CMO or head of demand, or they have just brought in a brand new CMO or head of demand. And those people and that company are inheriting things that are broken, half built from a previous strategy, and they don't understand why they're there or how to move forward. And we really enjoy doing the go-to-market strategy work with companies to understand what's needed, develop the investment roadmap, hire the right team in some cases, and in some cases, build the right systems for them to be successful.
All right. All right, guys, thank you so much for being here. This has been fantastic.
Thanks, Dean.
Thank you, Dean.
That was episode 136. Thanks for watching. You're probably watching this in a clip, but thanks for watching. There's loads of clips. You should watch more. And we'll see you next time.